what is your message? If you were in front of a camera and somebody put a microphone in front of you and said, what is the message that you have for the world? And maybe they give you 10 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute. What would you say? I think that's a pretty cool question, don't you?
That is a very good question.
And we're going to discuss that today on this podcast episode of the Gen 224 Marriage. We are Larry and Sue. We're your hosts, and we are looking forward to discussing what our message would be.
Yeah.
And then also to kind of help you to think through this, to prepare yourself, because you never know, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And is this episode, what episode are we on? 23?
Oh, I guess we've reached the point where I've lost track.
We've lost track. Hey, I think that's a milestone. We've lost track.
That is a milestone. I'm actually going to look it up here because you asked. This is number 24.
Number 24. Okay. Yeah. Very good.
We know what we're doing. We're professionals here.
Well, we try to always say that at the beginning. So I, felt like we should do that again.
You got to kind of keep on with that theme here.
Right.
So maybe I should give the setup here.
I think that you should talk about why you think this is a good idea to talk about this.
Yes.
You've had some inspiration.
I did have some inspiration. I was watching a show on TV. It was a reality show that's kind of competition based. No, I'm not talking about Survivor.
One of the many,
but I guess
copycats or whatever.
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't really hurt to tell the name of the show or anything.
Later, we'll tell them later. I don't want to stop now and Google it.
Wow. Okay. Well, now they're just really wondering what it's going to. Anyway,
now they'll stick to the end.
That's right. Stick around. But in this show, it came down to the final three competitors, and they were involved in like the final competition to see who was going to win the big bucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so right beforehand, the host said something along the lines of, you all three are here likely because you have a message to say to America, right? So I don't know why he came up with that premise, but they were in a unique situation that I would guess if you ask each of those contestants like 6 months ago or a year ago, and you said, hey, you're going to have this opportunity to share your message, they would be like, what? Why? I'm just an average person, and why in the world would I have this opportunity? But the host said, you're here because you have a message to share. So what do you think your message is?
No warning.
Gulp.
Here it is. Yeah.
And not to be too hard on the three people, because honestly, if I wouldn't have had this inspiration, I probably would have been like gulp myself, hopefully I would have come up with something of some substance.
Right.
But, one guy said, you just need to be true to yourself, believe in yourself. It's kind of like, wow. Another guy said, don't judge a book by its cover. All right. He had some reasons why he thought that was a helpful thing to say. And then the other guy was a veteran, and he just said, veterans can serve also. All right. So he wanted to maybe be inspiration for other veterans out there.
And those all are things that are not bad to say.
Sure.
Those are good tidbits and that type of thing.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, for just a moment, they had the attention of everyone who was watching the show and had the opportunity to say something really important. And, there's value in thinking about what would you say in this situation.
Right. For sure. And, I have had opportunities throughout my life where somebody has literally said to me, and that it wasn't like in front of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people.
I think that's kind of the point, is that we all are going to have an opportunity like this. It may not be with that kind of an audience, but we will be asked that question.
Yeah.
And it will be really important for some people to hear what we say.
Yeah. It could be one person who asks you something along the lines of, you seem different. What is it that's different about you? That was the question that was asked of me.
Yeah.
And I was in front of maybe 8 to 10 people at the moment. And I did go gulp. I had really thought through it at that stage.
You were like, what, 19 years old?
Well, no. This happened, I was a little bit older.
Oh, okay.
I was probably 30. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
You're aging me here.
Well, I was thinking
it was a long time ago.
Story. So, okay.
I probably have had more than one situation like that. But the reality was I was not prepared, and scripture says that we are to be prepared.
Yeah. There's an actual verse.
Yes. 1 Peter 3:15. I pulled it up. It says, in your hearts, honor Christ, the Lord is holy, always being prepared to make a defense or to give an answer to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. So we are to always be prepared to give an answer or a defense. And that can take on a lot of different meanings. But I think in our context of what we're saying here today is that situation where somebody approaches you, and whether it's with a camera and a microphone or whether it's just one-on-one, this is a great opportunity to be prepared and to just kind of think through this. So,
yeah.
So let's just start off by saying, what kind of things would we want to make sure that we talk about in that type of a situation? And I can get it started here.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
I think the absolute first thing is we want to point people to Christ.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. That's our most important message of our life.
That is absolutely the most important. That's what is going to affect people eternally. And so if I was on that competition show and somebody asked me that, I would want to just say something along the line of, I am who I am because of Jesus Christ. He rescued me. He saved me from my sins. And I am looking at eternity in heaven with him, no matter what happens in this competition.
Oh, that's a really good
first,
thing
second, or third,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's a very good thing to say.
Yeah. So I don't know. We can kind of build on it from there.
Yeah. So after making a statement like that, my throat is not cooperating today.
That's bad whenever you're recording an episode.
It is. And it started as soon as you hit the record button.
Yeah, so that's okay. You'll have kind of a raspy voice.
Yes.
For this one, it's fine.
So I think then building on that, I always feel like, one of the things, it's why we're here. One of the things that has always really been super important to us is to build into people's marriage.
Absolutely.
And, over the course of us being married for now 35 years, we're going to celebrate 36 this summer.
We're aging ourselves again.
That's hard to believe. Having been married for 35 years, happily married, still happily married, even after all this time. You said we were aging us.
Yes.
It's gone by fast, though.
It has. Yes.
And having raised 5 children and launched 4 of them into the world successfully. Yeah. And I think that talking about the way that the Lord has enabled us to do that and has given us this burden to help people have a great marriage through all the challenges of life. I think that's one of the messages that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, unfortunately, in our current world that we live in, being married 35 years is unusual. That used to be relatively normal, I would say. But I also even would go back to say, like, whenever people were married for a long time, I don't know how happy people were.
Right.
And so,
lots of people just stayed miserable.
Yeah.
Which they didn't have to.
Right. And so, that's going to stand out.
Yeah.
That's going to be something that people may kind of think, boy, that's what I want. Especially if they're newly married or if they're not even married yet, they may kind of look towards us and say that's something that we want. And so, well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here because we're going to help other people do this as well. We're still on our story, so I'll get to that in just a few minutes here. So we're talking about our relationship with Christ, our relationship with each other. And then I think the third most prominent thing about us is our entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And the fact that we've been entrepreneurs for over 20 years and full-time for over 12 years. And again, that's not terribly common. We see businesses come and go and it's a real struggle.
Well, and a relatively small percentage of people even pursue entrepreneurship.
Correct.
So that's also a bit unusual, which, to be honest, when we got married, did we ever think we were going to do that?
Absolutely not.
No, we had no idea that was going to happen.
Even when we started 20 years ago, it was just for fun. It was on the side. I actually had extra time in my hands.
I don't remember what that's like.
It's actually just kind of crazy to think about that. But
Yeah.
But after going full time, I remember hearing a lot of comments from people just saying, wow, you're really brave. I could never do that. And I didn't feel very brave. I kind of felt like at times I felt like we were being foolish. But it was also,
well, it was surprising that we were doing it. It was like, really, oh wow, I guess we're going to do this, and here we go.
Yeah. So I think maybe, so we're kind of going a little, obviously we're going longer than the 10 to 30 seconds window that we talked about at the beginning, but I think if we had that window of opportunity, we would talk about Christ, we would talk about being happily married, and really enjoying being entrepreneurs that work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that would summarize our 3 points probably pretty fast. So now can I get to the structure point?
Yes, go for it.
That I kind of jumped to already, but so we wanted to say like what we would say, and we stretched it out to explain it a little bit, but we want to encourage you to do the same thing, for you to come up with what is your message. What would you say? Be prepared, like 1 Peter 3:15 says, be prepared for that opportunity. Maybe write it on a 3x5 index card and have it in your back pocket. You may think, for that one in a lifetime opportunity. Yeah. Why not?
Well, and honestly, it'll happen to you more than once. We've experienced being asked similar questions. There's some form of that question that everybody gets asked at different points in their life. And it can be, it can be in front of some kind of an audience, but it can be your kids asking you. It can be your friends asking you. It can be, we spoke this last weekend at a conference. It can be, you're speaking about one thing, but somebody asks you a question like, kind of, what's your main thing? Because people, what's
the end goal?
What's the end goal?
That was a question we just got asked.
Yes.
Like, that's a great question. It makes you ponder that a little bit.
It is. So. And so spending some time thinking about, even if you write it down, even if you don't carry it with you, just the act of writing it down means that you've put some thought into it. And when you're asked the question, you'll be able to answer it in an impactful way. And that's I think a lot of people desire to have impact in people's lives. So.
Yeah, for sure. And, we're saying this, like, people will ask you these questions. Sometimes they don't phrase it exactly like that. So, for example, somebody coming to me and saying, wow, you are really brave in taking this leap. That's kind of a window. It's an opportunity to go through that and just say, I don't feel very brave. We are completely leaning on and trusting in the Lord for the results that happen here. Well, I just was able to kind of tell that story a little bit without them having a question mark at the end. They kind of made a statement, and then I was able to, turn that and give that opportunity into what we want to do. We want to influence others. We want to help other people. So.
And as so we've talked about, sometimes you're asked that and you get this really short window of that you have a moment to say something, but other times you will get the opportunity to share your story or parts of your story in a little bit more, just because you have more time, whether that is, something formal or something just informal. I think about like spending time out with girlfriends, having coffee or what have you. We just talk to each other about our lives and share our stories. And there's things that everybody has, that they have stories that they can tell that can be, again, it can be impactful and encouraging to other people.
And so for guys, that's why you're sitting there watching a ball game together or something like that. Guys are maybe a little bit less intentional about things, but their opportunities definitely come up. And of course, as a couple, it has happened a lot because, I don't know, just whenever you're intentional about who you are, then people notice. And we have had a lot of opportunities to talk to people as couples. We're just having dinner together or whatever, and we share stories. It's just what we do. And so sometimes, we're talking a lot about being intentional, but a lot of this just happens to the natural flow of life. And as you're exercising fellowship and hospitality, you have people over. One of the things that we frequently would do when we would have a couple over is we just say, tell us how you met.
Mm-hmm.
And man, some of the stories were just amazing.
Yeah.
Of how God put them together. And we've got a pretty interesting story about how we met as well that we'll share another time.
Another time.
Yes. Okay. So just kind of talk about what you were saying there is we still haven't really gotten to what I was going to get to, the framework type thing.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We'll get there eventually. But another way that we have talked to people about this is to say, like, if you had to talk about a topic for 20 minutes and you didn't have any preparation time, what would that topic be?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, but you can prepare ahead of time. It's just that at the moment that you're called on to talk about it, you don't have time to prepare then. And so I frequently talk about baseball. Got my baseball shirt on today.
We're recording on opening day, so it's going to be a day.
It should be a national holiday.
Yeah.
Let's just
you
be
tried
honest.
To give all of our kids the day off of work.
I did. I messaged all the kids and say, you have my permission to take off work, and if your boss has a problem with it, they can come talk to me.
You might have some phone calls.
Okay, enough nonsense, right? So, but seriously though, there are topics that are just hobbies that everybody has that I'm sure you could just start talking about. 20 minutes would be nothing, right? To talk about that topic that you just love. You were just on a call earlier this morning with the homeschooling mama.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You talked at least for 20 minutes.
We
about
did.
That, right?
And we talked about, curricula and how to navigate things with kids at different stages and all that kind of stuff. And I literally did zero preparation for that.
Yes.
I've homeschooled 5 kids all the way through. So
yeah,
I've had my preparation.
Whatever it is, 20, 24 years, something like that. And so now people are calling on that expertise.
Yeah.
Not that you've really, well, I guess you have kind of put it out there now.
Yeah.
But some possible tutoring opportunities.
Right.
You got one opportunity already. And so it's like, like you're saying, it's not like you're going to have to sit down and be like, oh, I'm talking to this mom who's homeschooling. How do I prepare for that discussion? Right. So hopefully that's kind of getting some things stirred up in your minds of like, just some things come to your mind, like, oh yeah, I could talk about that. I could talk about that. And then it's great, yours is a little bit more serious and important than what mine is whenever I'm talking about the topic of a sport or whatever. But put some thought into that. Like, what are some topics that I would like to be able to talk about for 20 minutes without having done further preparation? And then you can do that preparation ahead of time. And again, for us, a lot of it has to do with our journey as a married couple and as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And, we could talk about the obstacles that we've overcome, the challenges that we've faced.
That's something I think that's really important for people to talk about is when they've faced challenges or big obstacles, big events in their life that maybe as you were experiencing it, it felt like a negative, but other people need to hear your story and they need to hear how you came out of that, because this is what we do. We share stories to give hope and encouragement and inspiration that it's not always going to be like this. You will come out, you will, there are ways to get on the other side of this. And sometimes it's so we can show the way. And sometimes it's just so we can say, hang in there, depend on the Lord. He will see you through.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just be honest, like social media is full of everybody's best or everybody's worst.
Yeah.
It's like the
depends
two extremes.
On what points they want.
And so sometimes it kind of gets hard to see everybody else on their trips to Hawaii, everybody else on their big fancy meals they're going on. Just all of those type of things. There can be that envy that comes up, and that is,
you can feel less than.
Yes. And I know from my own personal experience, it's something I need to work on. So I'm not coveting, so I'm not envious of other people. But I do recognize that, they may have snapped that picture and everything was perfect for the moment. Then they may have just had a major fight with their spouse like later or something. Yeah. Not that I want that to happen. That sounded probably really bad. But I think hopefully the point comes across is that people are a little bit fake on social media and with what they're putting out there.
Or maybe even
And
just
so
incomplete.
That's a
Yes.
better way to say,
Mhm.
because there are those highs. We all have
Yeah.
those highs.
Mhm.
And personally, I don't put out all of those great moments on social media.
You don't put much out on social
I don't
media.
put much out there. I may put out there something out there today about today's the national
Oh,
holiday.
yes, absolutely.
It's maybe my
Gotta
one
do
post of
that.
the year. But what I'm trying to get to though is that where people can be impacted and helped most is by being vulnerable and sharing your struggles. And again, that doesn't mean go out there and griping and complaining and
Right.
moaning on social media
Right.
either, but it just means being real, like, hey, we came through this situation and here's how we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing that you did, whatever those steps were that you took, could probably or likely would apply to other people's
Mm-hmm.
situations
Yeah.
as well. And so it would actually have a positive impact and be helpful for them.
Yeah.
So, so just to kind of think about like so that structure, I'm back to that now. And that'll be one of the things that we'll do here as we start wrapping up. But whenever I said that we would probably share about how long we've been married and we're happily married and raised the 5 kids and all that, that's kind of setting some credibility, right? So there's probably some people who've been married not married yet, or been married for a year or 10 years or 15 or 20, and they want to know that this thing is going to last and that it's possible to be happy.
Yes.
Right.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So we're maybe that one step ahead, maybe we're 5 steps ahead, whatever, of somebody else. And so just think about it in your life. Maybe you're newly married. And so you could really build into the people who are not married yet and they desire to be married. There'd be a lot of other examples along the way also. But again, as you think about where you are, there's people who want to get to where you are. And so by sharing that information, you're kind of establishing credibility. This is why somebody may want to listen to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one part. Is there another thing that you've got on the top of your mind, or I don't know if we really outlined that much. So then I think then the second part of that is, what are some challenges that you've overcome in your life, right? And so if there's the difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yes.
We can really sympathize with anybody who's going through a tough time. But if we've been through it before, then we can really have empathy.
Yeah.
So I don't know about any of your journey, what you've been through. Maybe you're a cancer survivor. Well, there are people who are going through that battle right now who need to hear your story of how you made it through it, right? We've talked about being a mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
People like to tell the horror stories, but
sure.
about birth.
This was huge to me. When I was pregnant the first time, I heard so many horror stories about labor and delivery, like to the point that I was terrified of having this baby. And I literally had the thought go through my head, like, I'll just be pregnant the rest of my life. I don't never have to give birth. I don't want to go through it.
Not how it works.
And then I had the baby and it was an amazing experience. Yeah. And I got really purposeful with young mamas who were pregnant, who, especially if it was their first baby, I encouraged them so much to, number one, don't let anybody tell you horror stories. Like if they start in and say, I don't want to hear it right now, you can tell me afterwards. Yes. Yeah. And secondly, I told them about my story because it was very textbook and it was amazing. And it was, as soon as I was done giving birth, I just felt like Superwoman. And, I wanted to encourage them that this is going to be a really amazing, beautiful thing for you. And that's the type of thing that we can do for other people to help them navigate things, in that case, that could look scary, that they are going to be going through, and you can help give them encouragement that they don't have to fear it. Yeah.
And, for anybody who is watching this video, I know that if you're just listening, you can't see the reactions and such, but anybody who's watching, seriously, look at Sue's eyes, how they lit up whenever I mentioned that, and just how excited you were to tell that story. And that's what you want to be looking for in your life. I know that you've gone through things. I know that God has brought you through things. It's just the nature of our life that we have on earth. And it's what makes us long for heaven, right?
Yes.
All the challenges and struggles that we go through here on earth. So you've got something that makes your eyes light up the way Sue's eyes lit up when I just kind of prompted that story there a little bit. And those are the type of things that you can, like in your situation, how many times have you talked to pregnant moms and shared that story? And then the homeschooling moms, that's what, again, it's part of what you're designed to do, is to be an encourager and to help other people. And so, and all of us are called for that, to lift each other up, to encourage one another. And so that kind of brings us full circle to the very first thing I started with is, what is your message? What message do you have to share? And again, it can be in front of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. Who knows? Like with
who knows what opportunities the Lord will give you. If you apply to be on a reality show, you might get that opportunity. So
that's right.
So be ready.
Absolutely. And excuse me, or maybe it'll be just on one-on-one. If that suits your personality, that is wonderful. That is amazing. And so take those opportunities. But I think what we want to just encourage you with mainly here today is be intentional about it. Prepare yourself for it so that at the moment, it'll just kick in. And when you'll start seeing those opportunities, the Holy Spirit will give you those opportunities, I assure you. And then you're going to be able to help a lot of people along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for today. This has been a lot of fun just talking about this and kind of thinking about this. This is something that, again, as a married couple, sit down and think about this. So you can do it individually, but sit down and think about this as a couple as well, so that you can think about, what is your message? What is it that God has brought you through that you can help other people with as well?
Absolutely. And so we hope that you will take what you've heard today and continue to live as one flesh today,
tomorrow,
forever.
Take care, everybody.